So now we're moving on to a series of lessons about hair. The first study I'm going to do is a little boy with blonde hair. Pretty much no matter what colour the hair is, there's certain things that are going to be the same that you need to look for. The first thing will be where the light strikes the top of the head. You tend to get what I call a halo of light, and that's the thing that's going to partly give the head some definition but also make the hair look nice and shiny. There'll also be highlights further down that you need to take note of and pay attention to when you're doing your initial drawing in, and also mark out any areas that are darker. So there you can see that nice sort of eye shape there and that triangle a bit there. They're the areas I've concentrated on in my line drawing, just so I can get a general feel for the main areas of interest that define that person's hair. So in this instance, give this little boy a kind of tousled effect. But other than that, other than keeping to those sort of main areas, you're building up texture. So you don't have to be absolutely precise with each tiny little stroke. You know, as long as the direction that you're moving your hands in when you're putting your pencil to paper is following those general darker areas or lighter areas, you can pretty much guarantee your results will be good. One of the first things I'm going to talk to you about is the use of an embossing tool. More or less every colour of hair that I'm working on, I would put some little areas of embossed hairs in, just because even the most glossy, sleek hair has little escaping hairs that add a bit of natural quality to your portrait. So this young lad's got quite a lot of messy tously hairs, so I'm just going to add a few randomly in. You can try, say like that one, you can try and replicate some. Also, it just gives a nice difference in colour as you go in. As you put, say, a mid-tone yellow on, the areas that you mark out with the embossing tool are going to be one shade lighter. They're going to stay initially the colour of the paper, but then you can work on them later and make them a lighter tone of the same colour you've used darker later on. But it just helps to break up the hair so you're not ending up with any flat areas. So that would be the first thing I would do. We use it in a different way when we come on to doing curly hair, but for this I would just follow those lines, follow the directions like that. And then the first colour I'm going to be using is about quite a pale yellow tone, and I'm going to try and come in and mark out this dark area, just like I said, very loose, as long as you go in the same direction. So here, where this area sticks out from between that triangle, the hair's going in a different direction. It was following that curve and now it's coming out and following this one. So literally you're just working, following the lines, the main lines that you've put on. Certain areas where you see a darker hair, you may want to try and replicate exactly if you think it's important, but I would just keep it quite loose. Like I said as well at the beginning, thinking about this halo of light round here, you can see it starts at the crown of the head, it's quite dark, and then you have a band, that's the halo I'm talking about, and then you come on to the main colour of the hair. It's not super important at this stage when we're only working with a light tone to remember about not covering it, giving it the same coverage as the rest of the hair, but you can just be aware of it all the time. And even in the lightest bit, you're going to have some strokes that are going to go through it. So just at the minute, it's fine. And when you're working with a light colour like this, you can always erase it. It can actually sometimes look more natural if you work quite through a few through and then erase it back. So where I know that there's going to be a lot more dark areas, dark hairs in there, I can put a bit more colour in, but still preserving some areas of light, because the hair is going to be made up of lots of different colours. Even when you think it's a one colour of hair like blonde hair, within that you're going to have brown hairs, almost red colours coming in, some areas where it looks black nearly. And another little tip I'm going to talk to you about with blonde hair is adding green tones in. It sounds really odd. I'm not entirely sure how it works, but it is quite like magic, and towards the end just adding in a few strands of a green colour can really lift the blondness of the blonde. And I always add some green hairs to blonde subjects. I'm going to just swap a minute. I'm just going to work on a little section just to show you here. So I'm going to swap now to an ochre colour and try and bring in some of these dark areas. So if you're working just with lines or little triangle shapes, thinking all the time as well that the crown of the head, the hairs are just starting, so you can bring them out of the head and then back round. Just helps for you to know where you are, to get these main areas in place. Then you can be sure you're making your strokes in the right directions. Sometimes you get an area where hairs will change direction if they're in front or behind of others. You can add those in if you want. Doesn't make a huge super difference if you get them slightly in the wrong places. The main thing to remember is the points at which the hair overlaps the face. You want those to be accurate because they are affecting the expression. Where hair comes to its natural end, you need to be thinking about the tips of it and making them sort of raggy in appearance. You don't want any solid areas. So you need to be keeping jagged edges at the ends. Other than that, it's the same way we've been working pretty much on skin or anything. Is you sit back and screw your eyes up and you're looking for areas of dark and light to give definition to everything. Just that now we're working with a textured stroke. Where this dark area meets this light one that's coming through, avoid doing lines like that in the darker colours. Try and make up to your line with vertical strokes from the way that these hairs were coming, and then start following part way along so that the top hair is a pale one. You can then bring some lines in like that, but just keeping that top one from being a harsh line just makes it look more natural. Sometimes you get individual hairs overlapping in a darker area, and that's quite a nice effect you can use. So say this little area here, let's just suggest it there, you can make diagonal marks go across it like that, and that just suggests those other blonde hairs going in front. You don't have to follow them through. Just having a suggestion diagonally across will imply that they're there, and just give more texture rather than just putting that area in as a solid dark. If you do that, or even you can make them go different ways, be a bit random with it, it just helps to give texture. Also, instead of doing full strokes, doing broken ones like that does the same thing. So now I'm going to think about that halo band, more or less comes from above this point. I'm just going to kind of, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this. Think of the crown as kind of like the body of a spider being there and its legs coming down. So its little legs are going to stick into the top of that halo. So you're just going to have points where it breaks into it, and then you're going to miss out and you can start again down here. one or two of them can come right across, like we said before. Just want to talk about the point where the hair reaches the face. You're going to have generally an area of shadow where it does that, and obviously we'd then bring in the skin tones adjacent to it as we worked. And then areas like fringes are going to have a cast shadow underneath them, where you can have very dark areas, and you would want to be doing those areas in the skin tone, so you would probably want to work up a small area of the skin up to where the hair comes down. Okay, I'm just going to add a little bit more colour to this area here that's dark. So I can see there's some red tones in there. I'm just going to add in some red hairs. And define this other dark area. Similar, like we're going to have, take that same colour, do a few of the little spider legs down in that one too. It's the same way, if you notice colours down in the dark bits but they're not evident in the pale bit, just use them anyway. It just helps to harmonise and bring everything together. You can just do one or two. I'm just going to take some of these, I'm going to follow with the line, some of them, because he's got quite unruly hair in places. I'm just going to let it have a mind of its own a little bit and do some the opposite direction too. That's what I mean, you don't have to be too precise. It's nice after the having to be precise with things like teeth and eyes that you can just be quite fast and imprecise with it, and it doesn't matter. I'm coming with a bit of a darker brown now. Being a little bit more controlled with where I'm going with this, because if you put too much on, obviously it's going to change the colour of his hair and he won't look like a little blonde boy anymore, he'll look like a boy with brown hair. Back in with my yellow now. You don't really notice those hairs so much that we emboss. There is one becoming apparent there. On pale hair like this, you're not likely to really notice, they don't stand out, which is why we could just so randomly put them in. But that's the effect that they give. I don't know if you can even pick it up on the camera with it being such blonde hair. literally you're just using quite a limited colour palette. I'd say only 3 or 4 colours, just working all the time, building up areas in any combination of those colours you like. And you can start to see this halo effect that we're having of missing out that line. And right at the crown of the head you need to make everything a bit darker. It's all where the hairs are all coming together, they're all coming from. Point the join into the head, it's just going to look darker there. Also, if you're doing a portrait of a blonde haired person on a white background, you will need to make this background hair darker than it appears in the photograph, obviously so that the subject stands out against the paper. You might want to leave that till last, because it only needs just to be a subtle thing. Further around it shouldn't be too much of a problem, but just where the hair is very, very blonde, you're going to have to suggest lines that aren't really there. Because the pale hair would not stand out sufficiently against the white background. When I'm looking back now at it now, I can see some areas of shadow that are here. I'm just going to use one of my mid-tones like the brown ochre and just come in and lightly put those in, just the same way we would shade with hair, because it's every strand of hair, no matter what colour that is in the shadow. There we can see some more of those embossed lines coming in the bit where he's a bit tousled down here. I'd added some that were sticking out at odd angles, which are really helping to break it up. And we've got a really dark part there, I'm just going to pick out. Again, using that same kind of spider legs coming down from any dark part, it works the same way. You just want to pick out a few. Anytime there's an overlap of hair and it's a dark area like that, it works. Just put a few more of the redder tones in here. Like I said before, balance it up by using them again at the top. And you can just start to see, to get a feel for the way that you would build up the whole head of hair. And it's just a matter of working and working on it until you think each area has got enough colour and enough tone in it to make the whole thing balance. And now, just like I said, I'm going to add just in a few little strands of green and some green down in these shadows. tiny little bit of dark blue. I'd also maybe use purples in the shadows on her too. On this photograph though, we've not got such darks that we need a lot of that in. Purple instantly also is another one where I might add odd hairs in, just because we use quite a lot of purple in the whole rest of the face, and again it ties it all together. Sometimes these surprising combinations really work. So that, I'm hoping that's giving you just a basic idea of the way you would work up blonde hair.